Asia. So we are very fortunate, including myself. We just finished a 3 days Asia BK facilitators retreat with Judy. And on the other side is Sister Mira from Seoul, Korea. So welcome, Mira. So Sister Mira is taking care of the meditation center in Seoul, in Korea, South Korea. And she's a national coordinator of all the centers in South Korea. So both are very special in their own way. One is from the west, the other is from the east. And this evening is a very interesting topic. Probably some may or may not be aware of this evening topic, just to let everybody know. This evening topic we pick a very interesting, actually it's one of the foundation for spiritual life, self-respect. So the topic we have chosen for both of them is self-respect, the basis of all attainments. Okay, self-respect, basis of all attainments. Probably firstly, Judy and Mira, some are new, Baba's new children, some are old, some are quite new. Probably each of you can share, what do you understand by the word self-respect? In a Logic way, in a worldly way, we use the word self-esteem. Spiritual way, we use the word self-respect. So, what is our understanding of the word self-respect? Judy? Self-respect, the basis of all attainments. Yeah.
Om Shanti. It's nice to be back in this place. I see many familiar faces, so that was a nice surprise from up here. Pure Bhai, I think this topic, self-respect and self-esteem and self-confidence and self-valuing, there's so many of those different things that I think for some time I was quite confused about the difference. And it really didn't matter to me because I don't think I had much self-respect. So whether it was self-esteem I was missing or self-confidence or self-value, I didn't care what we called it. I just, I don't think I had much of it. And I encountered, nice definitions that I liked. One of the ones I really liked was being loyal to the royal within. Being loyal to the royal within. Loyal. And I think that meant something to me because not having self-respect, the way I knew I didn't have self-respect is that I felt like I was willing to throw myself out the door when I did wrong things or when I made mistakes. That being really hard on yourself, sanskara. And we say in Canada, I would throw myself under the bus. Do you say that here in Malaysia? It's like, you're ready just to throw yourself out. Oh, you're no good. Like that kind of inner attitude. And so when I heard the word loyal, I thought there was something about being loyal to myself that I hadn't experienced before. And I think that's how I understand self-respect. I have more to say on that because I think I'm really now knowing the difference between self-respect and self-value. Knowing my own value. So I could say a little bit more about that later, but that I think would be my introduction, is being loyal to myself, actually.
Okay, Mirabent, what is your understanding of self-respect, actually?
Can you? Okay. Om Shanti. To me, self-respect is synonymous with loving the self. So I also had quite low self-esteem. In a way, I'm still working on it. And when I realized that I'm okay as I am, I think that was the starting point of beginning to love myself and building new relationship with myself. So that's how I would define self-respect.
Yeah. So probably, Judy, we've very often heard that self-respect both in spiritual life, in the worldly life. No, in the worldly life also they talk about self-respect. In the spiritual life also talk about self-respect. Is it true that people can have a lot of self-respect in the worldly life, but when they come to the spiritual life, they may have very low self-respect? Is that possible? If that's possible, what is the reason that they have very self-respect in the outside worldly life, but coming to spiritual life, they can't develop that high self-respect in spiritual life? Does that happen?
I think so.
And what are the reasons for that to happen?
I think so. The personal development world will do the pump up, affirmations for self, but the self they're talking about is Judy, and not the soul. And so I think that's a really huge difference. I discovered after about 10 years as a Brahmin that I wasn't trying to develop Judy. I wasn't trying to make Judy better, nicer, kinder, more peaceful. That it was actually the soul who was all those things. And so putting the effort into Judy, the personality, was actually a complete waste of effort. That if the soul, is experiencing its original qualities, it will shine through the personality of Judy. So I think in the West we have a lot of self-esteem building courses, and a lot of them are based on personality development, that Judy will be better, Judy will be kinder. And so a lot of affirmations about the personality, about Judy. And I think in a worldly way, we can rely on all of our accomplishments and our position and our income or our social class or our children. A lot of people feel self-respect on the basis of how well their children are doing. And so we have all of these things. And so even though it's false, we feel more confident. And then we come to Baba and we get stripped away from all those things. I'm no longer relying on that for my self-respect, and I feel a bit vulnerable or a little bit stripped of all of those props. And I actually want to be without the props, but there is a period where without them I just feel kind of naked and not really worth much. Yeah, so I think that's a good process to get stripped clean and start again, spiritually.
So that means, Judy, I know I can put in a few words that self-respect in the body life is based on more on body consciousness.
Yeah.
You're not focusing on being so conscious. We are in the spiritual world, spiritual life, we are very much focused on soul consciousness. Am I right?
Yeah, and I think in the spiritual life, we begin to perform enough elevated karma that little by little, drip by drip, drop by drop, we rebuild a self-respect that's real, but we don't notice it for a few years. It takes a few years before it shines through, and suddenly then I have self-respect. And all those years I'm struggling with it, even as a Brahmin, thinking, when am I going to feel self-respect? It's like the holy grail of our spiritual life. And if I'm not feeling it, I think, what am I doing wrong? But actually, I think there's enough years of elevated karma and being obedient and following Srimad, and that eventually, drip by drip, it adds up. And one day we wake up, which is what happened to me, and suddenly, well, what was all that self-doubt about? Suddenly it's just there. And I think a platform gets built over time of consistent effort.
So Miraband, very often we heard that people were saying that self-respect is based on very much what we are, not what we do. So do you agree with the statement that self-respect is based on what we are and not what we do? If you think can you elaborate on that? You agree with that statement?
I would say that Judy Ben just mentioned about doing a lot of positive karma, which would build up our self-respect. I think what we do is also connected with, I would say, with our self-respect, because self-respect, loving the self, is connected with how you see yourself. how much value you see. When we see something very valuable, then we would love that, and we would like to treat it well, whatever whether it's a person or thing. So when it comes to human beings, if we are doing good things and improving ourselves in a way, like I think of the word adding value, value, true value. Respect to ourselves. So I think, of course, the self-respect that would never change. I mean, when you know the real value of yourself as soul, there is that basic self-respect, but you can love yourself more as you change more in a positive direction.
You want to comment on that, Judy? Self-respect is, Miraben was saying that she feels it. So based on both what we do and what we are. And what do you feel on that aspect?
I think the day that my self-respect woke up, really, in a spiritual way, was during a phase where I didn't feel like I was very good at anything. And it came, like the dark night of the soul, it came to a moment where the only thing I knew for sure was true was that I had pure intentions, and that whatever I would do, I would always look to find the truth within it and the most benevolent thing. And when I had that awakening, it was like, that's really good. Like, I can really respect somebody who's like that. And it awakened my self-respect. So it was a fundamental quality of the soul. And it was undeniable. No matter where I go, no matter where I am, I will always, the right way, not the right way, the best way, the honest way, the honesty in the situation. And I will always look for the best. And when I saw that in the soul, that's just how I am. That wasn't a doing, but it took years of doing to arrive at that breakthrough moment. Do you know? And I think that the soul has so many buried memories of actions that degraded us, doing things that were beneath us. And those memories, even though I can't remember them, they're there. And so it's like a haunting. It's like an inner voice that's just noise all the time. And it takes a while for new images of self to accumulate. And I think that's what the pure karma does, is that bit by bit I see myself doing things with Baba's energy in it in a more dignified way. And those memories add up. And then suddenly I have a different vision of myself. So a bit of both. I think a bit of both, yeah.
Yeah. So the next question is, you see, when we talk about self-respect, is there different level? Is it a low level of self-respect, it's not good, and too high a self-respect is not good? And probably the middle level may or may not be good. So what is your opinion? Because sometimes you think that we are achieving very high self-respect, probably ego may comes, arrogance may comes, and then that boosts us up. If our self-respect is too low, probably we lose confidence. We are not able to have that enthusiasm, that zeal, and that drive to do something. So, in your opinion, what is the balance? Is it too high, is too good? Or too low is okay? Or middle is better?
I think that's why we put true before self-respect. So when the self-respect is true self-respect, it won't be affected by external things or because of the way we have been. We may sometimes think that it's self-respect, but that's actually respect. So it seems like that's why we refine gradually over time. And until you really, are clear and clean and shine just as a soul, maybe we still have that possibility of fluctuating, going too high and too low, depending on the external impulses or stimulation. So, that arrogance can come out suddenly, surprisingly, and also sometimes you lose hope in yourself. That may happen. That's why we want to have that respect, self-respect that doesn't change. It takes time, I feel.
Do you know, Miraben and I used to live in Canada together. You know, Miraben was in Canada so we were Brahmins in Canada together. It's kind of lovely that we're here on stage in Malaysia. And in Canada, we have this joke about Canadians. Maybe I told this to you last time. But Canadians are, how does that go? We're arrogant about being humble. We think we're the most humble ones. Because we live next to America, right? So in Canada, we always say, well, we're not like them. So there's this subtle arrogance of being humble. And Daddy Janki says the last virtue of all is humility. Because if you have all the virtues and then you're arrogant about it, well, then you've just, then you've lost all the virtues. I don't think you can ever have too much self-respect, quite honestly. Arrogance is different than self-respect. You can never have too much. I think it's just a good thing.
For the information, brothers sisters, tonight's program is live cast to many centers. So many brothers and sisters are watching the program at the moment now. The other important question, probably both of you can share with the family, is we always talk about self-respect in many areas. Self-respect and yoga, self-respect and intoxication, self-respect and consciousness. So probably all of us know the most important subject is yoga. Probably Judy can highlight to us why in yoga we need a lot of self-respect. To have good experiences in yoga, we need to have a lot of self-respect, or we need to maintain the self-respect. Why? And how to develop the self-respect in yoga?
I think, when we can only ever have yoga, a direct connection with the purest being, if we start from a high place inside ourselves. So yoga is only really possible with self-respect. So I think, I know in my past I have struggled for yoga, and the moments when I've struggled are usually the times when I feel less good about myself. The times where I have the easiest yoga, and certainly in 20 years, the last 5 years, I have much better yoga. In the first 2 or 3 years, I had great yoga. And then there were a bunch of in-between years where, it was a bit of a struggle. But I think that's a parallel process with self-development, or with the development of self-respect. Because now, I sit in front of Baba and I don't feel like I'm coming with, a lot of effort to make a connection. But I'm also not wafting, in some esoteric state. I really just sit in front and I feel like I've come to one I love and one who loves me, and we're just going to have a nice meeting. In some ways it's more plain than it was before, but in other ways it's much more equal, much more just a direct connection. And I think that's because of self-respect. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Miraben, you want to add anything on that? Self-respect and yoga.
I would agree that if you are not in that state of having really respecting and loving yourself, the connection won't be very good. So I would, agree with what Judy Ben said.
Okay, and you see, for a spiritual life, I think important is the morning. Probably both of you can share with us how the Murli really is a magic to create self-respect in us every day. Probably can elaborate a little bit further. Why Murli, listening to Murli or understanding Murli or churning the Murli is so important to maintain a high self-respect, or is a basis of self-respect, the Murli.
I had the fortune of living in a place where I was mostly alone for a lot of years. People came and went, lots of service, 4 nights a week. I would teach, or do some kind of program. But for morning Murli class, it was me and Baba. And so I'd read it out loud to an empty room, just to hear a voice, And slowly people came, but only 1 and then 2. And so now we have 4 on a daily basis. So I think early I discovered that the Murli was my best friend because it was a conversation with God. And every day, because we had no Brahmins, I would try and find 2 things from the Murli that I could write as a daily thought. And Sister Nikki from Jordan had asked me to write daily thoughts for the Middle East. She said they can't have God in them, and you have to popularize spirituality. So you have to take something from the Murli, but then make it simple so anybody could understand it anywhere across culture and religion and everything. So, and I started that, I think it was 16 years ago. I've only been 20 years with Baba. So for 16 years, every morning I write, a daily thought. And I think that's kept me alive, actually. And especially the challenge of taking something from the Murli and saying it in such a way that I could tell my mother, or, my mother-in-law, or the neighbor who's a philosophy professor who hates God. But to take something from the Murli and make it so easily translatable to anybody, I think that just gave me such an appreciation for the jewels in there, and it gave me the practice of inculcating it really well. And even though there were no people to tell it to on a daily basis, I did have this daily thought practice, and I think it gave me a real appreciation for the value and the worldly value. So I don't have a parrot practice. Baba says there's pigeons and then there's parrots who repeat the exact words. I don't have that because there was nobody to parrot to. There was nobody pigeon, not that. It was just me. So I would have to get extracts,
Actually, I can testify to the work or the Murli churning that she did because when I went to visit Canada, I saw the calendar that she created out of those daily beautiful thoughts, actually. It was the title. And we liked it so much. Then I brought it to Korea and we translated and we made it into a perpetual calendar. And we send out, daily mail, and we get so many positive feedback from the recipients of the message. So it has such a deep, meaning and depth added to it. So I can testify to that. And I also find Murli and churning of the Murli, like you are awake. You are awake as a soul. And Murli is the most important part of that, because even yoga, without Baba's knowledge, yoga would be less powerful. So, I try to churn and spend time on churning Murli. And now through this facilitators retreat, I found some new ways of churning in a group with the family in a more interesting and entertaining way. So thanks to Judy Ben.
Thank you, Mira. Probably the next question is very common, is how to maintain constant self-respect. So in other words, we can be a spiritual student, attending Murli, doing service, okay? and why our self-respect is not able to remain constant. In other words, one day self-respect can be very high. The next day, it just tumbles down. Probably from your experience, what are the subtle or what are the reasons why our self-respect goes down sometimes? Is there any reasons, or is there any hidden secret why our self-respect goes down?
I was somewhere a couple of weeks ago with doing service in another country, and my senior, I won't say who, but you know this person in Europe, she said to a gathering, a big gathering, and I was just sitting next to her, she said to a big gathering, Judy knows her value because she has let herself be used by Baba. And I didn't know that I knew my value until she said that. And then I understood, the reason I know, it's true, because I've let Baba use me so much. I think what happens is you begin to see how he uses you in many different situations. And it was a setting where I wasn't able to facilitate, I wasn't able to offer anything that I normally would offer, say, in a service, in the service field. And I was asking myself, what am I doing here? I just feel pretty useless. I'm not doing anything. I should be doing something. How come I'm not doing anything? You know, when will I get to do something? And I noticed that as I was having the thoughts, sitting there, not really doing anything, that they weren't distressed thoughts. They weren't anxious thoughts. They were more just noticing, I wonder why I'm here. I'm here for 2 weeks. I'm still not facilitating. It's been days. And then this comment was made about me. And in that moment I realized, I'm not here to facilitate. I'm here. And then I realized, well, just to be the glue. I'm paying attention every single moment to what happens in this gathering. And it felt like it was a form of glue. I was there just, my sheer presence was bringing value. And it was invisible. It wasn't standing up and doing things. It was just being there. And that's when I think I understood the difference between self-respect and and valuing the self. And when I saw how Baba uses me, I saw the value of the soul from Baba's perspective. And then that changed the game. It's like it's not about self-respect anymore. I mean, I'm sure it still is. But I feel like self-respect for me then was more of a surface game I was playing. And with this deeper understanding of what is the value of the soul? The soul's got value. Baba uses the soul because it's valuable. So feeling the value, knowing the value, it's different now. I feel much quieter inside. I don't feel like the self-respect roller coaster is happening so much. So I wonder if within that experience there's some secrets about self-respect being fluctuating, that underneath it's not really knowing the value and still trying to build self-respect on something else. Do you know? And something else that creates fluctuation, whereas value is stable. Especially the way Baba sees your value, which you can only know when you observe how Baba uses you. And it isn't for our cooking, and it isn't for our skills, and it isn't for our great decorating capacity, or how good a teacher we are. That's not. I mean, that's what he uses practically, but underneath that, it's the soul's willingness to be used that makes it valuable. And as soon as I see that in myself, I'm willing. I've said, final bargain. I've given myself. And then I watch how Baba uses me. I see that the soul is valuable.
It's a very good statement that Judy makes. No, I see the value in me, and Baba uses that value in me. Then I feel the worthiness in me. So what do you think, Miraben, about why sometimes our self-respect is not constant? We want to be constant, no? Why sometimes up, sometimes down?
When we lose, we come down from that self-respect, somewhere, anyway, to begin with, I feel that, your self-worth and maybe you are being a better person or doing something for Baba, or the something positive change. If you don't feel that, and then your focus would shift naturally to outside. So then your criteria of your value can be influenced by something outside. So other people, or you may be looking at what other people are doing or what other people have. So those things will influence you when you don't see something changing in a positive direction. So I think that's when we lose self-respect. So it's connected with what's happening inside you, but then it opens up to all the external influence. That's what happens, I think.
So, Judy, the other thing, practically, my self-respect is very low now. Or tomorrow morning when I wake up, my self-respect very low. You feel it's low. So what do you think the immediate steps we should do to raise up the self-respect? Is it we go to silence, or we just go to Baba's room, or practically from your experience, when the self-respect of the soul is low, what immediate steps we should take, and not to end so as to raise up the self-respect?
Do service immediately. Give something to somebody, somewhere, somehow, fast. Because when our self-respect goes down, the greatest danger actually is to stay alone. Because then you indulge in these waste thoughts and you go around in a circle. And the only way to get out of yourself, it's not your real self, of course, it's the body conscious self that's having this conversation. The only way is to give. The only way is to immediately be involved in service. That's why Daddy says she does service before breakfast. Right? And that's what, I mean, I send the daily thought right after Amrit Vela, before I even have a cup of tea. And I know that this is a karma that helps lift. You know, year after year, day after day, doing this becomes a karma that is just a practice now to give first before I take a cup of tea. And so I think when our self-esteem is in trouble, our self-respect's in trouble, the worst thing to do is just spend time thinking about it, or to be alone. Sister Vedanti said something interesting at NCCC this year. We were talking about conflict at centers and how do we get rid of conflict. I don't know if you remember this, Purebai. And she said, conflict's good for Baba's centers, you know, Vedanti Ben, right? She said, when there's conflict, people spend much more time in Baba's room. So we go and talk to Baba, which I thought was really good. And I'm not sure if that same thing applies to self-respect. I think actually better to do service and then go talk to Baba. Yeah.
When your approach, Judy use service.
Yeah, I agree.
What do you think?
But at the same time, you know, when you lose self-respect, there can be different kind of situations. So I wouldn't say that it's good to indulge in your, you know, down mood, but you can do something that will make you feel good about yourself. So you can gradually build positive self-image. I think, how you see yourself, I think is connected with having self-respect very much. So do something like physically, maybe, you know, it could be for somebody, you know, going out for a walk, or do something physically. Or you know, doing something that will make others happy, and that's connected with what we can do for Baba, of course. So I think that we can do something that will make you feel good about yourself.
Okay, probably the other aspect we can take up is self-respect in relationship, because we know relationship is a very big area in our lives, you know. So how does self-respect really improve our relationship with others? Or in other words, If I can mix with everybody, does it mean that my self-respect is high? Or if I'm not able to mix with everybody, does it mean that self-respect is low? In other words, that probably you can share a little bit how self-respect can improve relationship. How self-respect can improve our relationship with others. Improve relationship with others.
I think when you are in good self-respect, the relationship would be better, of course. So a good relationship, if that's built on the self-respect of both sides, that will be the best case. But if not, forget about the others. You yourself can be maintain good self-respect. Then you would be in a position to share good things with the other person. So I think the relationship will improve over time.
What do you feel, Judy? How self-respect can improve relationships?
Yes, I definitely agree with Mirabin on that. We have this saying, maybe you have it here also, that there's no I in team. Do you have that saying here? We say there's no I in team. It's one of those corporate slogans that people say. There's no I in team. Have you not heard this before? No, maybe it's just North America? Oh, okay. So, but of course, meaning you can't have ego, you can't have individuals in team, right? And I work with the corporate world as a facilitator, and often I get invited to do team building. And I noticed in the Brahmin world, there was this, and still is, the same sort of subtle pressure that we should all be the same. And so maybe there's no I in team, but there is I in unity. And the only way to create unity, whether it's in a relationship with one other person or in a gathering, the only way to create unity is that each individual I, each individual soul is aware of their own value. Right? Because we teach people how to treat us. So when I'm aware of my value, then I carry myself with that self-respect, and then others respond to that. So as long as everybody appreciates their own speciality, then unity can be created. You cannot create unity as a clone. You can't make everybody the same as you. It just creates disharmony. So wherever there's disharmony, there's a subtle wish or expectation that somebody would be more like me. Or that somehow we'd all adhere to the same standard. We'd be, photocopy Brahmins. And we're just not. And we couldn't be. So there's something about, well, for me, self-respect is the basis of a good relationship. Without it, who are you having a relationship with? False self relating to false self, or ego relating to ego. There's no health in that relationship. The amount of soul consciousness in it is the degree to which it can be healthy.
I think that when we know our true value and love and respect that self, then naturally you would respect the others. So you would be more accepting and allow for the diversity to be. So what Judy Ben said about the harmony in a team or person-to-person relationship, self-respect would make things better, of course.
The other aspect, probably Judy can highlight on this, is how the past old nature and past sanskaras can pull our self-respect down, and how to rectify that. We know in the soul we have taken many births off. So the sanskaras and the old nature is always there. And it tends to pop up again and again. So if it pops up again and again at that moment, what should I do? So to prevent this old nature, old sanskaras to make my respect very low.
Does anyone here still have old sanskaras? Even after this morning's Murli? We put a little sticker on our hand and called it those old sanskars this morning. Celia still has her, and then we ripped it off and said, gone. Yeah, of course, these old sanskars. Baba says Maya will be with you till the end. And what is Maya but a projection of our own body-conscious sanskars? Right? And it creates our own weaknesses, our own body-conscious sanskars that affect the way we look at situations. That's Maya. That's why it's illusion. So I'm having a perceptual distortion. I'm looking out at somebody and I'm not seeing the situation or the person as they really are. I'm seeing them through the filter, which is my sanskara affecting the intellect and how it sees things. So this perceptual distortion is Maya. And the distortion of feelings, the distortion of thoughts. And so Baba says this will be with us until the very end. So of course it's going to be there. So, but we're on a waste. So we have to manage the waste. To put a full. When I see someone being really good at this, I feel really bad. You know? Or when I see someone getting a chance to do this, I feel like, oh, I never get a chance. You know, we start to notice over time what are the triggers. What triggers this thought pattern. And the minute the thought pattern begins, I go down. So we just put a stop. And like Brahma Baba, you know, he could see it coming before it even hit him. Right? Mama, it would hit her. She'd turn it around instantly. Right? So what are we? It hits me 4,000 times until I finally say, I'm not having this thought anymore. I'm done with you. Right? And eventually, I think we just get fed up. We get fed up with our own nonsense, the nonsense in our minds, and we say, enough of you. I don't want that thought anymore. You know, I mean, we have to be that determined to say, every time that thought comes up, I will put a full stop. That's it. I mean, you cannot indulge, you cannot accommodate this kind of waste, or it will destroy you. It's pretty Kali-like, right? Be Kali with waste. Be Jagadamba with souls.
Yeah, Mira, you add on that? Okay, probably Judy and Mira, we have a last question. Can open to the family. So, from your experience, how do we develop self-respect? Any methodology, any steps that we should take immediately? Or probably some of us are new here. So what advice you will give to them so that they can develop their self-respect?
If we put self-respect on a scale of 1 to 10 and said 1 was low and 10 was high, how many in this room would say their self-respect is above 5? On average. On average, like on a day-to-day basis, how many would say above 5? Okay, how many would say above 6? How many would say above 7? Oh, okay. How many would say above 8? Wow, so we need to learn from these two. Okay, anyone say above 9? We're down now. Okay, 8.5, 9. Okay. All right, so, you know, we have room for improvement, right? So anything you heard here tonight that sounds practical? Did you hear anything tonight that sounds practical? For your situation? Yes? What did you hear that was practical?
Worthiness within ourselves.
Right.
Worthiness. Loyal.
Loyal. This being loyal to the self.
Loyal to the self.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Good. Anyone else get a practical tip? Yes? What did you get? Waste management program. Take out the garbage. That's right. Yes? Anyone else? A practical tip?
Value the self. Value the self.
Value the self. Yes, know the value. Doing your duty well. Right, so, yeah, giving. Very good. So I think Baba gives us practical tips every day in the Murli. And if you show up for Murli and you pay attention, you know, there was a time where I made it a mission for, I think it was about 30 days, maybe 60. I get bored after 30 days. It was probably 30 days. I put myself on a little program that every day in the Murli, I would take one point that genuinely made me feel better about myself. Because it didn't work for me to apply a title and say I'm a holy swan, because it felt like it was external and my internal did not match that title, and so I was always in this battle, you know, what I felt like and what Baba said, and that's our journey. That's okay. That's okay. So I thought, I can't take a title, that'll be faking it. So I decided for 30 days, every day in the Murli, I would find one point that genuinely made me feel better about me. And I gathered them for 30 days, and it was a good program. It helped me increase my self-respect. So I think you have to get practical with yourself, and you have to design a program for yourself. You know, there's lots of different tips, but Baba will tell us every day something. I think as long as we're following Shrimat to the best of our ability. So let's say you're not living all the principles, or let's say you're living them half-half, or let's say you come sometimes but not always, or it doesn't matter. Pick one thing and commit to doing it every single day. So if you go to work and Amrit Vela is not something in your life because you have a work and then you have a family and it's just too much for you, you know, awaken for 5 minutes at 4 a.m. Say, good morning, Baba, and go back to sleep. If that's what it takes, it doesn't matter. But do it every day, right? If you're already coming to Murli, if you're already doing everything, well then just find one little extra thing and do it every day. It has to be small, because the accumulation that results in self-respect only comes with consistency. It doesn't come when I do a 4-hour great bhati. It comes when I do one tiny little thing every single day, because then my track record, I'm proving to myself a certain track record. In other words, I'm becoming reliable. I'm becoming trustworthy to myself. I begin to see myself with respect. I can respect this person has done this every single day, right? So it's better that it be something small, slightly more than what you're doing now, whatever that is. And just do it every single day. And then what happens is that feels so good after time that then you'll have to do another little thing. And then you'll have to do another little thing, and you have to do another little thing, and you'll spend your whole Brahman life adding another little thing. And this is the stretch, so that we don't get complacent. And we always plateau, and then we find ourselves getting a little complacent, and then we need to stretch a little bit. Because we're capacity building, we're stretching our capacity all the time. So we just keep adding one little thing, but until it becomes normal, it becomes part of your regular routine, and you feel like you couldn't live without it. And then you do another one, and then you do another one. So it's the track record of consistency that builds a platform of self-respect in the soul. Because you have evidence of yourself doing something you respect. And that evidence has to build against the evidence of 63 births that you have stored in your memory of doing the opposite, of not doing the right thing consistently. And it's amazing, because we're living in the confluence age, this is a time of compound interest. So that one little thing, you don't get simple interest return, you know, 2%, 3% at the bank. You actually get compound interest. So one simple little thing done daily earns you, as Baba says, multi-million times. You get 100-fold return for one simple little action. Why? Because a consistent action is almost impossible to do. And anything that's impossible, anything that's rare or precious, is valuable. Therefore, it's very valuable. It's got high value, a high money factor on this simple little tiny action. So just pick one and do it every day for 30 days. And don't make it too big or you'll fail and then you'll feel bad about yourself. Make it doable. But little effort.
Practically, practically we can do it practically.
You have to do it
yeah.
practically. It's not a concept. I think that's the other thing. We think self-respect is a concept. It's actually practically building a muscle in the soul. So we have to do. It's connected to karma. I have to do something consistently. That's how I change my karma. I build enough karma so that I have self-respect.
So I think that's why we say the spiritual path is not a short track. It's like a marathon. So I definitely agree with the consistency and keep doing something for positive change. And also, when we lose our self-respect, that's when we make some mistakes, or when we don't live up to our own expectation, or if our standard is outside by somebody else. When we fail to meet that standards, that's when we lose self-respect. Then, if I didn't do something properly, or I made a mistake, then accepting that self, I think that's important. How to deal with the mistake or the self that did something inappropriate. So I think we should do something to deal with, and we really have to understand inside ourselves about that aspect of ourselves, but at the same time start doing something that can build the way to your goal, long-term goal, and every day, working every day, as Judy Ben said.
Maribeth, I think that's really important point, the mistakes, because when we make mistakes and we beat ourselves up, we're losing whatever self-respect we had, right? We had a little gain and then we made a mistake. Oh, down again. A little gain and then down again. I think at a certain point with mistakes, ego keeps us, punishing ourselves, and it's a bhakti sanskara to punish the self for mistakes, right? And that's ego will play this game with us a lot. And I think that at a certain point, when you make a mistake, if you can know, like beyond a shadow of a doubt inside of you, that you actually really just want to learn and stop making mistakes. If you can touch that part of you, that genuine, pure intention inside the soul that says, I want to get this right. I want to learn how to do this properly. I don't want to make so many mistakes. When you touch that, it's like it turns the energy around. And then the mistake becomes, okay, I keep making mistakes. Of course I do. I'm not perfect. But it doesn't matter. It's not about the mistake anymore. It's about, but I want to learn. I'm not good at this yet. I want to get good at this. The minute, then all of a sudden the soul becomes a master again and not a victim of its own mistakes. So somehow finding that within ourselves, and whether it's just reminding yourself or whether you really have to discover, do I want to get good at this or not? And if I do, okay, I'm a learner. Learners make mistakes. That's okay.
Very often the ego would have certain criteria, and that's if you really work on the concept or the criteria you have, it's not your own. You were influenced, or your upbringing, or social norms or values from outside. And as we grew up, we just brought them in and made ours, and we are formed on that. But actually, that's not we didn't really consciously choose those things, and now we have Baba's knowledge. So, based on the truth, we can look at those things at a more deeper level and see the true aspect of all those things. Then you can be. It's easy to give them up. So that's maybe how we can work on those aspects.
Yeah, sure. They have hard questions, this
Okay,
family.
so
Go ahead.
So any brothers sisters who want to ask both of them, and bearing in mind, just focus on self-respect that we are talking about this evening, on self-respect. Come, this is.